These are the gardens of the Angkor Paradise Hotel in Siem Reap. We are here in Cambodia to see the wonders of Cambodia's ancient world, the amazing Angkor temples. Please join us on our journey of fascination and wonderment. More than 1,000 years ago, deep in the jungles of northern Cambodia, a civilization arose that built the largest and most beautiful temples the world had ever seen. Then, mysteriously vanished, the tropical forest consuming their temples. Built over 1,000 years ago by a people who called themselves the Khmers, the ruins of this lost civilization were so remote it wasn't until 1914 that European explorers discovered these temples. About 77 kilometres by road from the city of Siem Reap is the temple of Beng Mealea. Guarded by the mythological seven-headed serpent Naga that originated in India, the seven-headed Naga not only protects temples, but they are also the protectors of springs, rivers and lakes. Although it was added to the UNESCO World Heritage Tentative List in 1992, private companies have removed most of the landmines left behind by the Khmer Rouge, and it is strongly recommended to stick to the paths when walking to and from the road. The history of Beng Mealea Temple is unknown and can only be dated by its architectural style. Thought to have been built in the early 12th century by the king Suryavarman II, it started life as a Hindu temple. Its design is almost identical to that of Angkor Wat, and most scholars assume it was one of the first of the Angkor temples. Originally situated on an ancient royal highway, the name Beng Mealea translates literally as Lotus Pond. It ranks among the Khmer Empire's larger temples, and, like Angkor Wat, it was the centre of the town, surrounded by a huge moat. The gallery, which formed the outer enclosure of the temple, measured some 180 by 150 metres. The temple's primary material is blue sandstone, mined from nearby quarries and floated down local rivers and canals on barges. Largely unrestored and in considerable disorder, this chaotic state is partly the wear and tear of 8.5 centuries in a tropical climate, and the invasion of the silk cotton trees, strangler figs and other vegetation. It is also partly the work of 19th century treasure hunters who used explosives to look for the temple's treasures. There is no information to say that they were successful. Because it is the intention to leave this temple in its current state, wooden decks and stairs have been installed to make traversing and viewing easier for visitors. So how could anyone, let alone the Khmers, build huge temples from stone in such dense tropical jungle? The answer possibly lies in one of the most bizarre natural phenomena in the world. The Khmer Empire grew and prospered in this part of Cambodia because of a huge lake, the largest lake in Southeast Asia. This lake, the Tonle Sap, would have afforded them an unlimited supply of fresh water, so necessary for their survival. The words Tonle Sap translates both as large freshwater river and great lake, and is a lifeline for many of the people who populate this area of Cambodia's northwest region. Here at the ferry docks at Khong Knias, not far from Siem Reap, we are about to board one of the unique local tourist boats for a trip up the river to the Tonle Sap Lake and visit one of the 117 floating villages that surround the lake. Our Cambodian tour guide, affectionately known as Nak, is explaining to us the bizarre natural phenomena of the Tonle Sap River. Twice a year the flow of the Tonle Sap River changes direction. The downstream flow of the river suddenly reverses and the water starts to flow back upstream. Tonle Sap River drains into the Mekong River near Cambodia's capital, Phnom Penh, and you can travel by boat from here to Phnom Penh and even on as far as Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. When heavy monsoon rains begin in June, along with meltwater from the Himalayas, the Mekong River floods. This flood backs up at the shallow Mekong Delta. Water then starts to flow back up the Tonle Sap River, causing it to flow backwards, upstream. This water flows back to the Tonle Sap Lake, which expands to 6 times its dry season size. We are here on the Tonle Sap River in late April, the end of the dry season. The monsoons haven't started yet. The temperature is 38 degrees and the humidity is 82%. The river is only a metre deep and boat motors churn up the muddy bottom. To make the river more navigable, dredging is a constant process and the material is added to the levee banks. Because of the shallowness of the river, boats carrying tourists and local commuters stick to the centre, the deepest part of the river, and this makes navigation interesting to say the least. Along the river we see markers designed to indicate the level of the flooding river. Around November, when the Mekong flooding subsides, the flow reverses and water flows back down the river to the Mekong and out to sea. The lake then shrinks back to its normal size. This centuries-old phenomenon was so important to the Khmer Empire. Water from the expanding lake flooded the surrounding forests, and the flooded vegetation was the perfect breeding and feeding place for spawning fish. Today, the Tonle Sap is an ecological hotspot and was designated as a UNESCO biosphere in 1997. Fishing is by far the main industry, with over 140 different species of fish found in the lake. The sticks seen here buried in the lake floor are anchor points for the floating houses. Fishing begins at the end of the wet season, and as the river changes direction of flow, it carries away thousands of fish. Fishermen throw their nets into the water from their floating houses and literally catch tons of fish. This lake harvests the largest crop of freshwater fish in the world. Each year, thousands of tons of fish are caught in the lake and river. About 50% of the fish is consumed in Cambodia, and the rest is exported. Floating houses on the lake move back and forth as the lake grows and shrinks every year, but more often, the lake people move to rural villages on the banks of the river. The Khmer Empire founded its capital near here, on the banks of this extraordinary source of food. Just like the Nile River created Egypt, the remarkable Tonle Sap Lake created the glories of ancient Angkor. The lake peoples are quite at home here on their floating residences. They have their own schools, shops, meeting places, and of course all their local travel is done by boat. Generators provide power for lighting, refrigeration, TV, Wi-Fi computers, internet, and other forms of communications. The vast majority of Khmers are Theravada Buddhists, but about 5% of the population are Muslims, predominantly the ethnic Khams, who live in towns and rural villages around the Tonle Sap. About 2% of the population are Christian, mainly Catholic, and here we see a local Catholic church, complete with education centre, meeting hall, and solar panels on the roof. Water is an important resource for Cambodia. 75% of its water comes from the monsoons, but this lake just looks like a muddy ocean, caused by its dry season shallowness and the passing motorboats. Our tour to this village includes a stop at a very touristy floating fish exhibition with a souvenir shop and snack bar. The pens contain several species of fish found in the lake, as well as some turtles, but the muddy waters make it almost impossible to see anything. Here in another pen are several captive freshwater crocodiles.
Contented, isn't it?
The shop contains Cambodian handicrafts and clothes. There is a fascinating range of products on sale. Here the unwary should watch their step. It's good to remember that we are floating on 44-gallon drums, and one wrong move could see us up to our necks in muddy water.
So 65% of Cambodians here living depending on this lake because of fresh water fish and the crop. We have a lot of crop around here. Yes. And we do have about like 117 villages living around the lake. All of them are the fishermen. Yes. And Cambodia, we are a very small country, but we are very rich on natural resource. The lake, they can create a lot of jobs, make a lot of food for local people. Apart from the lake, we do have like ruin temple like Angkor Wat. Through the country, we got 1,928 ruin temple. It's a lot of temple in here, but mostly in Siem Reap up. Yes, but this place called Phnom Lanes. As you can see a waterfall in some hill. It is the quarry or sandstone. They took the stone from here to build this temple or to build Angkor Wat.
The Khmer peoples who settled this area grew and prospered, mainly because of the monsoons that control this lake. Before the first temple was built, Indian trading dhows had been coming to Southeast Asia for hundreds of years. Following the rhythms of the monsoon winds that blew their ships from India to Asia, the sailors had to wait 6 months or so until another monsoon wind would blow them home again. While they waited for their passage home, they passed on their ideas of religion, art, dance and architecture to the local population. According to legend, peaceful neighbours from India settled here in the first centuries, colonising the Khmer people. The combination of the two cultures eventually formed the Kingdom of Cambodia. The same influence was felt in neighbouring countries Siam and Burma. As we return to the Con Knias Wharf, we can reflect that so much of the history of Cambodia surrounds this gigantic lake and its river, called the Tonle Sap. It floods for half the year and is so shallow for the other half that boats can run aground. And even in these muddy waters, fishermen can still try their luck. The old Angkor civilization took advantage of the bizarre natural phenomena of the Tonle Sap Lake, river and Cambodia's monsoon weather systems. The huge reservoirs they dug filled with water during the wet season. The water they were able to release during the dry season enabled them to double and sometimes triple the number of rice crops per year. Just the thing for a developing nation. This heritage still continues today.